On Tuesday, March 10, 2026, the United States military took decisive action. In the tense waters of the Middle East, U.S. Central Command, the body overseeing American military operations in the region, announced its forces had successfully struck and destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying boats. This engagement occurred near the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but critically important maritime choke point. The stated goal of this operation was direct and preventative to stop Iran from deploying sea mines that could effectively blockade one of the world's most essential shipping lanes. The strike represents a significant escalation in a conflict that has been rapidly unfolding, moving from targeted airstrikes to a direct confrontation at sea. The announcement from United States Central Command, or CENTCOM, did not occur in a vacuum. It was the culmination of a rapidly escalating series of events, a decisive move in a high-stakes geopolitical chess match centered on one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. For weeks, a tense quiet had settled over the region, but beneath the surface, intelligence agencies were tracking a flurry of activity that pointed towards a significant and disruptive act. The signals were becoming too clear to ignore, forcing a strategic decision that would have immediate and far-reaching consequences for global security and commerce. The public statement followed a period of mounting intelligence and increasingly direct public warnings. Multiple sources indicated that Iran was preparing to leverage its significant naval assets, particularly its fleet of small, fast, and difficult-to-track boats, to disrupt commercial transit through the Strait of Hormuz. This wasn't just posturing. It was the mobilization of a specific, asymmetric capability that Iran has honed for decades. The concern was that these vessels, often operating under the cover of darkness or blending in with civilian traffic, could be used to deploy naval mines covertly, creating a sudden and perilous obstacle course for international shipping. According to U.S. and allied intelligence sources, this preparation was not a theoretical threat, but an imminent one. The intelligence wasn't just about intent, it was about capability and opportunity converging. Reports suggested that specialized units of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, or IRGCN, were on heightened alert. These units are trained specifically for asymmetric warfare, including the rapid deployment of mines from non-traditional platforms. The assessment was that the window for preventative action was closing rapidly. The most alarming element was the concern that Iran had already begun the process of laying mines. This would represent a significant escalation, crossing a red line for the United States and its partners. A naval minefield, even a small one, is indiscriminate. It poses a lethal threat not just to military vessels, but to any ship transiting the area, including massive oil tankers, container ships, and LNG carriers. The potential for a catastrophic environmental disaster or a major loss of civilian life transformed the situation from a strategic challenge into an immediate crisis. In this context, the American military response was framed as a necessary defensive measure. The stated objective was not to initiate a conflict, but to preserve the fundamental principle of freedom of navigation, a cornerstone of international law enshrined in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. By acting to neutralize the mine-laying threat, the U.S. argued it was upholding international norms and protecting the global commons from an illegal and dangerous impediment. This justification was crucial for securing the support, both tacit and overt, of other maritime nations who depend on the Strait's accessibility. The military action was preceded by clear political signaling. President Trump had issued a stark and unambiguous warning just prior to the operation, putting the onus directly on Tehran. The White House was demanding that Iran immediately remove any mines it may have placed in the waterway and cease all preparations for further mining activities. This public ultimatum was a classic diplomatic maneuver. It established a clear justification for subsequent action, while offering the adversary a final opportunity to de-escalate. The demand was specific, actionable, and left little room for misinterpretation. This direct communication was a way of signaling a very low tolerance for any attempt to impede maritime traffic. It communicated that any interference with the nearly 21 million barrels of oil that passed through the strait each day would be met with a swift and decisive response. The message was intended not only for Tehran, but also for global markets and allies, reassuring them that the flow of energy would be protected. Therefore, this direct military intervention underscores the sheer gravity of the situation and the incredibly high stakes involved for all parties. For Iran, it's a matter of projecting strength and leverage. For the United States, it's about maintaining its role as a guarantor of global security. And for the rest of the world, it's about the stability of the global economy. The destruction of these Iranian vessels is far more than a simple tactical military event. It is an action loaded with immense strategic consequences. Each vessel neutralized represents a blow to Iran's asymmetric warfare doctrine, but it also carries the risk of retaliatory action and further escalation, potentially drawing regional and global powers deeper into the conflict. Ultimately, the operation is a clear and forceful message from the United States and its allies. It demonstrates that they are not only willing to use force to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, but that they possess the intelligence and operational capability to do so preemptively. It is a declaration that the freedom of navigation in this vital artery is non-negotiable. The operation was meticulously designed to neutralize a very specific capability, Iran's ability to quickly and covertly deploy naval mines using its large fleet of small, agile boats. By targeting these assets, CENTCOM aimed to surgically remove the most immediate threat to commercial shipping, thereby de-escalating the crisis by removing the tool of aggression, rather than engaging in a broader conflict. The success of this mission now hinges on whether this calculated use of force leads to a restoration of stability or triggers an even more dangerous response. The Strait of Hormuz is a name that frequently appears in headlines, but its immense geographical and economic importance cannot be overstated. This narrow channel of water separates Iran to the north, Oman to the south, and the United Arab Emirates to the south, and is the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. At its narrowest point, the shipping lane is only a few miles wide, creating a natural choke point for the immense volume of traffic that passes through it daily. Its strategic location makes it arguably the most important strait in the world for the global energy supply, placing it at the center of regional and international tensions. A staggering volume of the world's oil transits through this waterway. In 2025, an estimated 13 million barrels of crude oil passed through the strait each day. The boats targeted by the U.S. were described as mine layers, vessels designed to deploy one of the most insidious weapons in naval warfare, the sea mine. A sea mine is an underwater explosive device. It detonates when a ship or submarine passes close. Unlike torpedoes or missiles, mines are passive weapons. They are placed in the water and wait silently for a target. This passive nature makes them a powerful tool of denial, capable of rendering vast sea areas impassable without a shot fired. There are several types of sea mines, each with different mechanisms. Diagrams showing floating contact mines. Diagrams showing seabed influence mines. Contact mines float near the surface and explode on contact. The U.S. strike on Iranian mine-laying boats on March 10th did not happen in isolation. It was the culmination of a rapid and violent escalation that had been building for days. The incident itself was a stark illustration of the new reality in the Persian Gulf. U.S. naval forces, operating under heightened rules of engagement authorized by CENTCOM, intercepted several Iranian fast attack craft. These boats were detected moving covertly under the cover of darkness, attempting to deploy naval mines directly within a critical international shipping lane. The American response was decisive, neutralizing the threat before the mines could be laid. But this single naval action was merely a symptom of a much larger and far more dangerous conflict. It was a pivotal moment in a war that had erupted with shocking speed just 10 days earlier, transforming a tense regional standoff into a full-blown military confrontation. The world watched as decades of shadow warfare burst into the open. The war began on February 28, 2026. In the pre-dawn hours, a series of precisely coordinated airstrikes, reportedly a joint operation by the United States and Israel, targeted high-value military and leadership sites across Iran. The operation was extensive, utilizing a combination of stealth aircraft and long-range missiles to bypass Iranian air defenses. Key command centers and strategic facilities in major cities like Tehran, Isfahan, and Qom were hit simultaneously. The most significant of these strikes targeted the personal residence and command complex of Iran's supreme leader. Initial intelligence assessments, later confirmed by multiple sources, indicated the attack successfully assassinated Ali Khamenei. This was a classic decapitation strike, a high-risk, high-reward maneuver designed to cripple Iran's command and control at the highest level. The strategic goal was to sow chaos within the Iranian leadership, disrupt their ability to coordinate a response, and potentially trigger an internal power struggle that would paralyze the regime. But the gamble did not unfold as planned. The Iranian response was swift, massive, and surprisingly coordinated, suggesting that contingency plans for just such a scenario were already in place. Within hours, Iran's remaining military leadership unleashed a retaliatory barrage of hundreds of ballistic missiles and thousands of attack drones. This wave of attacks was not aimed at a single country, but at U.S. and allied military bases and strategic sites across the entire Middle East, from the Arabian Peninsula to the Levant. Regional air defenses, including Patriot batteries and naval Aegis systems, worked overtime, lighting up the night sky with intercepts. But the sheer volume of the assault overwhelmed many defenses, and as sirens blared across multiple countries, civilians scrambled for safety. This massive exchange marked the definitive start of the 2026 Iran conflict. The initial hope for a limited, surgical operation was shattered. The war had immediately escalated into a widespread, multi-front confrontation, with land, air, and sea domains all becoming active battlegrounds. And at the heart of this new battlefield lay the world's most critical energy choke point, where maritime security was already under immense strain. The immediate and most visible consequence of the escalating conflict and the U.S. strike was the reaction in global oil markets. Energy traders and analysts watched the Strait of Hormuz with hawk-like intensity, and any hint of disruption sends prices soaring. Even before the naval engagement, the outbreak of war had caused a sharp spike in oil prices, with Brent crude nearing $120 a barrel. The news that Iran was actively mining the strait and that the U.S. had responded with force added a significant risk premium to the price of every barrel of oil. This volatility reflects the market's deep-seated fear that a significant portion of the world's oil supply could be taken offline at a moment's notice. Higher oil prices quickly ripple through the global economy. Increased crude costs lead directly to higher prices for gasoline, diesel, jet fuel. The security of the Strait of Hormuz is not solely an American or Iranian concern. It is a matter of profound importance to a vast array of nations across the globe. This narrow channel is the world's single most important energy choke point. Roughly 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption and 1/3 of its seaborne liquefied natural gas, or LNG, passes through this waterway every single day. Any disruption here sends immediate and powerful shockwaves through the entire global economy, making its stability a shared and often tense international priority. For this reason, countries that are heavily dependent on imported energy are watching the situation with extreme anxiety. This is particularly true for the economic powerhouses of Asia. China, Japan, India, and South Korea are among the largest customers for oil and LNG that transits the strait. For these nations, the consistent flow of energy from the Persian Gulf is not an abstract economic data point. It is the lifeblood of their industries, the power for their cities, and the heat for their homes. For example, a significant percentage of Japan's crude oil imports and a substantial portion of China's LNG supply navigate this very passage. A blockade, even a temporary one, would trigger a severe energy crisis in Asia. These nations would be forced to immediately tap into their strategic petroleum reserves, a finite buffer designed for emergencies. Simultaneously, they would scramble for alternative energy supplies on the open market, competing for cargoes from West Africa, the Americas, or other regions. This sudden surge in demand would cause prices to skyrocket, not just for the oil itself, but also for the insurance and freight costs to transport it. The potential economic dislocation would be immense. Higher energy costs would squeeze manufacturing margins, threatening to derail industries from automotive production to electronics. The ripple effects would be felt globally, disrupting supply chains and fueling inflation far beyond Asia's borders. European nations are also deeply invested in the stability of the waterway, though their energy calculus has shifted in recent years. While many have worked to diversify away from Russian energy, Europe still relies on significant volumes of LNG from the Gulf, particularly from Qatar. This gas is critical for balancing their energy grids, especially during peak demand in winter. A closure of the Strait would remove a vital source of flexible supply, putting immense pressure on European energy markets, and potentially forcing difficult choices about industrial consumption and residential heating. This direct economic stake is why several European countries, including France, the UK, and others, maintain a naval presence in the region. Their warships patrol these waters, not in an aggressive posture, but as a stabilizing force. They often join or lead multinational maritime security missions, like the European-led EMASOC, to safeguard freedom of navigation. These coalitions focus on de-escalation, surveillance, and providing reassurance to the commercial shipping industry, demonstrating a united international commitment to keeping the Strait open. Ultimately, the involvement of so many countries is rooted in a foundational principle of international law: the freedom of the seas. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, guarantees the right of transit passage through international straits like Hormuz. This means that ships from all nations have the right to continuous and expeditious navigation, a right that cannot be impeded by the coastal states. This legal framework is the bedrock of the global trading system. Any challenge to it in Hormuz is seen as a threat to maritime trade everywhere, from the Strait of Malacca to the Suez Canal. Therefore, for the world's nations, ensuring stability in this single waterway is about defending a principle that underpins the entire modern globalized economy. The destruction of 16 Iranian mine-laying boats by U.S. forces was a sharp, calculated military action designed to address an immediate threat. The central goal was to prevent Iran from closing the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for global energy, by seeding its narrow shipping lanes with sea mines. This strike has, for the moment, degraded Iran's ability to execute that threat and has sent a powerful message about American resolve to keep the waterway open. However, this action has occurred within a broader, escalating conflict, and the situation remains exceptionally tense and unpredictable. The immediate risk of a full blockade may have been reduced, but the underlying dangers have not disappeared.